do, just picking up books. Really, I wasn't really focused on real estate investing per se. When I started, I was just generally looking at how do I get to where I need to be in the future? Like, what's going to be the best way to start generating some passive income, you know? So started picking up books on the stock market. It's probably cliche, that's what a lot of people do, but every book had something about real estate in it. And that led me back to real estate. And I said, okay, forget what happened in the past. This is a new day, and let's start trying to figure it out from there. So, or you want to know like what I initially started doing to get started?
Right. Exactly.
You know, I started doing some postcards. That was the first thing that I did. I started doing some marketing to pre-foreclosures.
Right.
Just because I think that was the low-hanging fruit, and it's the obvious place to kind of start. And you know, I didn't really get a lot of feedback from the postcards. I got a couple phone calls that I didn't know what to do with.
Right.
You know, and I actually had an opportunity at a sub-2 deal, but I didn't know anything about sub-2 at that time.
Right.
And looking back on it, I think I could have really helped that person out. So that's initially what I did. I started pulling pre-foreclosure lists, building on myself, you know, before I knew about Propelio and list providers and things like that. I was actually doing the research myself, and that's a horrible thing to do. Don't ever do it.
That's a little time consuming.
Yeah.
You mean the list
time.
from Propelio is a little bit better?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Save you a little bit of time. A little nugget there, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Get a Propelio account. Save yourself a tremendous amount of time.
And one thing too is I was trying to pull lists for Dallas County and all its adjoining counties. So it wasn't just Dallas. It was, you know, Collin, Parker, Tarrant, Johnson, Ellis, Kaufman, and thinking that I could market to the whole entire Metroplex.
Right.
But I found out real quick that I don't got enough money to do that. And so that was that's actually a pretty good point, I think, for people starting out, is like, you know, really focus in on an area, learn some zip codes, and make that your target, because I don't know, unless you got super deep pockets to begin with, then you're not going to be able to get, if you're doing direct mail, right? You're not going to be able to reach everybody that you want to reach, because it's just going to cost you a fortune. So I learned pretty quick that, hey, I need to focus on these areas that I'm going to farm. Being that I still worked a corporate job, I just focused on my route to and from work and my commute, and got really familiar with those neighborhoods and those zip codes, and that's kind of what I started doing. Okay.
And so from there, you got started, you started doing some marketing, and then you found out that trying to put your own list together was kind of cumbersome and time consuming, and of course you're working your W-2 full-time job, right? So I'm assuming that didn't go over really well. So what'd you do from there? What was the next step?
The next step was I looked for somebody to kind of outsource that stuff, you know, the list and the direct mail and those kind of things. And I was at a point where I felt like I was learning a lot through reading and you know, all the resources available to us nowadays, but I really felt like I needed a mentor.
Right.
You know, and I'm just going, how do you find a mentor? You know, how do you find, because at the end of the day, you're going to end up having somebody that you work with that's going to mentor you, whether it's a formal agreement or a partnership or whatever it is. There's always somebody that you can learn from.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of where I was at.
I mean, it's so true. I mean, you know, I'm almost 30 years in this business, and I've got mentors. You know, I've paid a lot of money for some of them, and then I've got different aspects of my business, and I've got, you know, basically, you know, business partners is kind of a loose term, but you know, it's still people I look up to that I can ask questions to, because you never know it all. Yeah, it's just impossible to know it all. So let's talk a little bit about the mentorship. And so you were wondering how to do that. How'd that work out for you?
I think like most people, you start at trying to attend some of the fly-by-night seminars, going to weekend events and things like that, and figuring out real quick that, hey, unless you got 30 to 50 grand to put up, you know, you're not going to make a mentor there per se. And then felt like, definitely being sold something that I don't know if I needed, because in my mind I was going to, if I had $50,000, I'm going to go do real estate deals.
Right.
Right. I don't know that I'm going to pay this guy X amount of dollars to, who knows what comes of that, So I think that's the place that most people start. They'll start going out to some of these meetings and things like that. But I think I was just in the right place at the right time when I met you.
Right.
And thought, hey, here's somebody who's genuine, that knows what he's doing, that I think would be extraordinary to work with. And so, joined up with your program and hadn't looked back since. So.
Right. So, and it's been a lot of fun working with you for the past, well, not quite a year yet, because you joined up in the spring. So how long were you in the program when you got your first deal?
We were probably about, I want to say a couple months in.
Couple of months in?
Yeah, when we got the first deal.
So let's talk about that for a minute. How did that deal work out? How did it come about? How did you find this particular seller, and what transpired there?
So this particular deal I found through direct mail, yellow letters.
Yellow letters.
It was a campaign that I had started prior to meeting you, and I literally only sent out 100 letters. And people that I would talk to at different events and stuff, they kind of gawk at that. Like, oh, 100 letters, you're not even scratching the surface. Well, I know that, but this is what's feasible for me right now, right? And
well, hang on now. Is it 100 letters per shot, or is it 100 letters total?
It was 100 total over 6 months. So it's a multi-touch campaign.
Gotcha.
Just 100 people, 6 times.
There you go. So really 600 letters.
Right, 600 letters.
Right.
With a little different message each time that the letters went out.
So just to let you guys know that you're a lot better off sending out 600 letters to 100 people over a period of time. So that consistency is what's important, and that's what brings in those phone calls. Because this guy that called you, did he call you on the first letter?
No.
Did he call you on the second letter?
No.
Third letter?
A lot of those first calls were don't mail me anymore.
Don't mail me anymore.
That was a lot of what I experienced.
At least you're getting a response. So any response is a good response.
That made me very happy. Yeah. Like, wow, it's actually working. This letter is dumb, but people are calling me. So that was exciting. But I had like I was telling you though, people were saying you're not going to do anything with the 100 letters. But the thing is, I was taking action, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm trying to do something to get where I want to be. I've got to start somewhere. This is what I'm doing. I was already doing postcards. I wasn't successful with the postcards, and the yellow letters seemed to get the phone ringing a little bit more. But when that lead came in, I was working with you guys, and having somebody by my side really helped me take that first deal down. And it wasn't just everybody wants to start wholesaling. I think that's where a lot of people start out. They get into here, hey, I want to make some quick cash, I want to wholesale, and it's a tough business. It's a really tough business. But this opportunity, after studying a little bit, talking to you, we knew that we had an opportunity for a seller finance deal. It just all made sense. This was the 6th touch, and went out and walked the property and talked to the gentleman and kind of just listened, really tried to listen to what his issue was.
Right.
And by the way, the list was an absentee list. High equity, over the age of 55, I believe, list that I was mailing at that time. And so he had a rental property, and the tenants had taken off on him. They'd stolen some stuff out of his house. The gentleman was getting up there in age, and he's tired of dealing with the tenants. He's tired of dealing with the whole thing with being a landlord. Right. He really didn't want to lose that income, because that income was helping him in retirement. And how
did you figure that out?
Just talking to him, just talking to him and seeing, because I made him a cash offer originally. But as our conversation went on and on, I knew that I didn't think I was going to get it at the cash offer that made sense.
Right.
And so just talking to him and hearing him say, I really don't want to lose my income that I have on here, then seller finance immediately popped in my mind. And you know, spending an hour talking with that guy, learning everything about him, it just made sense for him to.
So what was his initial response to that idea?
His initial response was, well, I'd like more information.
Right.
You know, and I knew enough to be dangerous, I think. You know what I mean? I knew enough about the concept, but I didn't really know the nuts and bolts. And
because if I'm not mistaken, we hadn't even been over this particular strategy in class yet, have we?
We hadn't at that point.
Yeah, I didn't think we had.
But I knew that you knew the strategy. so that was good. And I was able to tell him, you know, hey, I don't want to give you bad information, but I think we can work this out like this, set this out with a seller finance deal and get you some income just continually coming in to help you achieve that goal that you're really trying to achieve, which is having that passive income and not having to deal with tenants.
Right.
And so I said, do you mind if, you know, my partner Russ reaches out to you so we could get you some more information about it? And he was really excited about that and said, yeah, absolutely, you know, let's do that.
Right. So how long, when thinking back in this conversation and you're having these conversations and you're really fishing for information, right?
Yeah.
How long into this conversation before you really started talking about the house or trying to do a deal? You say you met with him for an hour.
Yeah.
How long into it?
Probably the very back end of that hour.
Right.
I mean, I was talking to him about, you know, I never started the conversation about the house. It seems like we sat in his living room and just talked about life and what was going on before we ever talked about the house whatsoever. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great move. It's so important that you completely understand their situation, their goals, and what they're going through, how they're feeling, you know, how they're approaching the sale of their house and what they need. Yeah. Because once you figure that out, then you can come up with a strategy that basically will solve their problem. If you can solve their problem, the chances are they're going to sell you the house. And it doesn't really matter if you're the best deal money-wise, but if you're the best fit for their situation, they're going to do that deal with you. Now, and I know based on that deal, because I was involved with it too, we weren't the best offer, were we?
No, we weren't.
So do you remember a little bit about the numbers? I know you bought it owner finance. How much money did you put down on that?
$0.
$0. Okay, I like that one.
My favorite price.
So you got it's my favorite price too. Is free. So you got it for $0 down and what interest rate?
6%.
6% interest rate. Okay. Yeah. And what was the numbers on the other deal that they offered? Do you remember?
Somebody was throwing 10 or 12% out.
It was 12%,
and I don't know how in the, you know, they could have came to that conclusion or how they could have even done that, but that was the number that they were throwing at him, and you know,
yeah,
he didn't like it.
He didn't like it. I think the big thing is after talking to him is I don't think he completely understood exactly what they were offering.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that when you're talking to sellers that you structure these deals so that A, you solve their problem, most important, number one, solve their problem, and two, present it in a way that they understand what you're going to do, how the process is going to work. You've got to make them feel comfortable, because if they're either confused or uncomfortable, they're just going to say no.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. They're not knowing what they're going to do, but if they get confused people just say no.
Sure.
And so I think that's where we won on this one, is because we were able to present it in a way that it wasn't confusing. It made sense to him, and it solved his problem, frankly.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely, I think so. And I think it was really, you know, that I knew enough to be able to say this might be a viable option to you, but I was also smart enough not to, you know, say something that was going to make him not trust me or make him feel like I didn't know what have somebody that we can talk to. And that made him feel comfortable about that. After I'd already spent all that time building rapport and figuring out who he really was and what he was about and what his goal was with the property. You know, I wasn't just showing up there because on that particular list, I think it's more of kind of a shotgun approach. You know, yeah, you have a rental house, but are you really looking to sell it? You know, when you're marketing to that list, well, I don't know that, you know. But obviously he was, right, or he would have never called us. But,
exactly.
But understanding, you know, his situation and then just building that rapport with him is what really, I think, got us to win out over somebody who's coming in trying to give this guy 12%. Like you said, I mean, he just, he didn't understand it. He felt comfortable with the way that he understood what we were trying to do to help him out.
Well, very good. So you got this deal under contract, and once you got it under contract, you basically started marketing pretty much right away, right? How long did you own that house?
I think I actually had title to that house for 5 days. 5 days? Yeah.
So did you find the buyers prior to closing, or was it after closing?
We found the buyers prior.
Prior to.
We were
or at least got into conversations with them. Right. And so how did that, what was kind of the process that you went through with the selling of the property?
The process with the selling of the property, that was an experience.
Yeah.
That was kind of eye-opening to me. It really told me, like, I never understood the demand for a seller finance property, you know, and I'd heard various people talk about it, but it never really hit me until I had people that were showing up to that property to view that property. I had people asking me if they could put down $100,000, which just blew my mind, you know.
Right.
You know, I was like, well, that doesn't really work. Maybe we could have made that work.
Why didn't that work? Because that would fit great in your pocket, wouldn't it?
It would fit great in my pocket, but the problem is I'm trying to keep our seller's income. He expects a certain amount, and that's what his real goal is, to have X amount of dollars coming in every month.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go back and renegotiate with him, and I don't think the numbers would make sense for him at that point.
Or just pulled one over on him, and that'd been terrible. Because you're looking at a guy that was dependent on that income.
Sure.
And I remember some of his questions. He was like, well, okay, you know, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was in his 80s.
Yeah.
And he was dependent on that income to supplement his retirement income, which wasn't very much. And so, you know, the thought of just absolutely losing that and taking the cash, and you know, he was very upfront and realistic that, hey, if I take a cash offer, that cash is going to be gone in no time. But if I take and sell this on terms, then I've got that income going to last me the rest of my life, and that's what was important. So, yeah, you've got someone wanting to put down $100,000, but if you do that, it absolutely blows his income out of the water. So, you know, good on you for not accepting that offer, because you could have made that offer work and certainly padded your pocket, but then you wouldn't have got the monthly income that you have now, and he certainly would have made his monthly income, so you'd have kind of let him down and cost you a little bit of money too. So, you know, it's, I don't know. I've always lived by the adage that you take care of people, and the money takes care of itself.
Yeah,
and in this
so.
case, I think it worked out really, really well for both of you.
I think so. The last thing I want to do is not be transparent.
Right.
You know, I can't tell a lie to save my life.
I'm not very good at it either.
And I'm pretty, you know, I think it's very important to be upfront with people. I mean, like I was at a property this Saturday, and, you know, there was a wholesaler that came through and actually had the property under contract. Never said anything about what his intentions were with the property. And she was under the impression that we've got this thing sold and we're going to closing, and he couldn't close on the property.
Right.
And, you know, that to me is not good ethically, and it's not a good look for people who are trying to do what we're trying to do as well.
Right.
You know, and so that was kind of disheartening to hear that, you know, but he never once mentioned what his intentions were, that he wasn't going to be the guy closing, that it's going to be a third party, you know, that he was going to shop it. And I personally, I'm transparent about anything like that. You know, I'm going to let the seller know what's going on. I think that's really, really important, and you have to have some integrity.
Right.
For sure.
I think so. I think integrity goes a long ways. I think that I don't know. My wife calls it karma. I don't necessarily believe in that one, but I think
karma's
that
real.
Well, a lot of people believe that, but you know, I think that it does catch up to it at some point.
Sure.
You know, because it's really a small world, and you know, you only have so many opportunities, and then you know, if you get out and take advantage of people, then those. You know, the word gets around eventually.
It's reciprocity. You know?
It is. You just, I don't know. There's people in this business that I've seen, and of course, a lot of them have already gone. But you know, they come in and they've got a mindset, and it's not always the best approach, and not always the upfront and honest approach. And I think that it really hurt them in the long run. So it's so important that you just treat people right and do the right thing to the best of your ability. And, and I think things will work out much better for you.
See, for me, and I don't really like the term, and this is just me, and it may be silly, I don't like the term investor.
Yeah.
You know, I don't fancy myself a real estate investor, because when I think about investments, I think about, you know, I sock some money over here and I walk away, and over time it's going to be worth X amount. That's kind of what I think of it as an investment.
Right.
And this, you're investing, right? But a more real estate solutions provider is what I want to be. You know, that's what I want to offer. The kind of service that I want to offer is what's the problem? What's the solution? Do we have a solution? And so it is a business, and I think for starting out, you got to start building systems from the time that you know, whether it's 100 yellow letters or postcards, you know, you have to start developing systems that you can eventually scale. And, you know, I think I've gotten to a point where it's repeatable. I've created something that is repeatable. I mean, I have my 14-year-old daughter who helps me out a lot. And I can explain it to her, and she can go through all the tasks that need to be done. Even when I was starting out, you know, she was helping me pull those and put together those foreclosure lists.
Foreclosure lists.
Now we've got a pretty good process in place. But I think for a lot of people starting out, you got to look at it as a business, and because the term investment it seems like it means passive to me, which is not what this is. This is you got to hustle and bust your butt to go out here and do it, right?
Right.
You can't sit on your hands and just think money's going to come in, or you're going to make so much money down the road. So that's why I don't like the term investor.
Right.
And also, if somebody was to approach me as a real estate investor, that's kind of it's kind of off-putting when somebody's in a situation that is in a distressed situation to me. Like I don't like that verbiage.
Right.
For them, because that, to me, that I would just feel kind of bad about that. Like, this person's coming to me as an investor, and I'm over here in the struggle. You know, I don't really use that term, and for a lot of people, it's kind of notoriety. They like the way it sounds, but I don't. That's just my personal take. You know.
Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that are turned off by the word investor. Yeah. And you know, there's. You know, we're sometimes seen as seedy characters. We don't look good in court. You know, usually doesn't go our way. So
that's the last place you want to be, I can assure you.
There's a lot of people that think we're vultures, just out, you know, preying on bad people or people in bad situations and taking advantage of and profiting off of their bad situations. Yeah. And you know, it certainly can be argued that, but you know, but then
it's
also
all about perspective.
It is about perspective, because we're really there to help them out of those situations and help them solve their problems. And if you approach it with that in mind, and then you do the best. Now, I've never pulled punches and let someone, you know, think that I was doing it out of the goodness of my heart and not, you know, in it for
not
profit
trying to make some money
and make money. For sure, and I don't think that anybody I've ever dealt with as a seller in one of these deals ever thought that, you know, I was doing it. Because frankly, in my presentation to them, I'm very upfront and honest and clear about, you know, what I intend to make, what my percentage is. You know, I'm looking for about a 10% return.
And I think that's great.
I think that is a fair number, and it's an easy number, and sometimes it's a little less. Typically, it's a little more because, you know, things that are happening in the market and the value of the properties go up. And in the last several years, if you bought a house and then 6 months later, and you set an ARV based on that day, 6 months later it's increased. And
sure.
you know, I've had them increase as much as 15%, and it's just crazy. And I know those days are going, so guys, don't get too comfortable with that, because otherwise it's going to reach up and bite you in the butt. But you know, make sure that you become a student of this business and understand the different strategies, because there's a strategy that'll work well in a down market. There's you know, all of them work well in an up market. But
yeah, and I think the strategy we used on that deal was probably more of a down market strategy.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
I think that there's going to be more opportunity for those kind of deals. I know there's people that do them all the time. I mean, the seller finance is huge, but I think there'll be more opportunity in the future.
I'm big in. I really like it when we work one out just like this one, where you've got nothing down, 6% money, and it makes it incredibly easy to sell, because then you can play with the interest rates and play with them out. Now on this one, do you remember what you bought it for?
Yeah, we bought it for 140.
Bought it for 140, 6% zero down, and you sold it for?
Sold it for 180.
180, and you picked up how much down?
I picked up right under 10%.
Yeah.
So I picked up 15 grand on that, which, you know, looking back, I should have got a little bit more.
And you sold it for what interest rate?
A couple points over that. So there's another mistake that I made on that. Left a little bit of money on the table. But
as I recall, it was your first deal, and you were a little bit nervous, and you didn't want to pay that first payment.
I didn't want to get into a situation where I was paying, you know, paying a bunch on it. Of course, I would have if I had to, but so I kind of was nervous about it.
Right.
You know, but it all worked out, and you know, hindsight's 20/20, but it's a great learning experience, and it's really. I wasn't thinking about selling the note. I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was just thinking long term, like, hey, this is long term, and I think you really want to leave some exit strategies there. So in the future, yeah, we'll make sure.
But you created a $40,000 spread.
Sure.
Picked up just about 15 grand down payment, and it's cash flowing.
Yeah.
So, you know, not a bad deal any way you look at it. Yeah, you could have sold it for a little more interest rate if you would have held out, but. I sold it to the first person. I'm not mad.
Literally the first person that came and looked at the house is the one who ended up buying it.
That's right, because they kind of came and then they went away.
Well, I scared them away with the down payment on one.
Yeah.
And once they got down to it, they were like, we want to keep a little bit more than that, and you know, ended up coming back and saying, okay, well, we'll do it for 15 down instead of 20 down. So, but they were the first people that looked at the house. Yeah. So.
Well, we're coming to the first segment, so we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back in just a moment. Well, welcome back, guys. Russ Keith here, and I've got my good friend and mentor student, Jeff Montanya, and we're just talking about getting into real estate investing and kind of walking through his first year and his first deal, and we've got room for questions, so you guys have questions, just drop a comment and ask a question. We'd be glad to work through those and answer as many as we possibly can. So anyway, welcome back, and we'll just get back into it, Jeff. And so we were basically talking the numbers on that deal.
Okay.
And so let's get into a little bit about going back to the first beginning of about, because you started about a year ago, right?
Yeah.
About this time, a little more than a year. I guess it's more in the summer. 2017 trying to get into real estate investing. And then, of course, you came and joined my mentoring program about February, March, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in
so
that time
tell
frame.
me a little bit about when you first got started and you started looking at different ways to get into it. I know you started reading books, and then I know you started going to some of the meetings. And so what was some of the lessons learned? Some of the things that you might impart to people that are just trying to get started in this that might save them a little bit of time? What would you do different?
What would I do different? I probably would have sought out legitimate mentorship a little bit earlier. I think I could have fast-tracked it and scaled a little bit quicker. I was at a point, I think, where I felt like I really needed somebody that I could lean on for stuff, because I wasn't closing deals that I was going out on, and properties that I was going out on and looking at and walking, talking with sellers. I just wasn't getting it done.
Right.
And I knew there was just a lot of stuff that I can read all the books that I want, but I got to get with somebody who's more experienced and kind of ride their coattails and learn what I can learn from them to really be able to prosper, I thought. Right. At that point. And the weekend things, the 3 days here and there, I learned little bitty things here and there, but they string you along and they give you this much and make you feel like, you can't go on without them and that kind of thing.
Because if you'll buy into this next level, we'll roll back the curtains, right?
Exactly. And and when you're sitting there and you're trying to change your life, you're really looking at, how can I make my future better for me, my family, and my kids? And this is something that I'm taking serious. It's almost a slap in the face, really. Those places just, I left there angry. I left there angry, like, at what they were doing to people, because I felt like, man, that's just, what a drag, right? And so I knew that I needed to find somebody local that was legit, and I actually met Kim, your wife. I was asking about pre-foreclosure list, because it goes back to the story that I was telling you. I'm putting together this list. Does anybody have this list? Because I can't spend the time that I'm spending to put this list together. And she reached back out to me and said, hey, I think I got an answer for you. So and that's how I met you guys, and it just seemed like a good fit. Right.
And then you started coming to crush it. And,
yep.
And then we just kind of evolved from there. So very cool. So when you're getting started in this business, and I've kind of lost my thought there.
It's all right.
Ever happened to you?
Just get started
all the time.
Just get started. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Oh,
really
I know what I was talking about. You started talking about why you were in this business.
Yeah.
And does that factor in at all? The reason why you do this business?
Yeah, it does. For me, it does, because it goes back to the initial story that I was telling you, where I became an accidental landlord when they were throwing. If I'm understanding your question right, if I'm understanding your question right, you're kind of, does my experience that I had with that first rental property and not going so well factor into it? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Well, what I'm talking about is that, we've been doing this a long time, and I've worked with a lot of people, and some of them they're just on fire and they just go.
Yeah.
And you're one of those individuals. You take action. You take action
Sure.
every day, if not every day, every week, right? And I know you've got a W-2 job, and it's difficult, and I get that, because I did that for 24 years.
Right.
Well, really longer than that, but anyway. Where I worked basically real estate investing part-time,
yeah.
and I taught full-time or had other jobs. It's a bit of a challenge. So it's a challenge, yeah. and I was lucky, because I was married to a woman that really got into it too, so we did it together, and so pretty much that's all we did, is we worked and we did real estate.
Right.
And so when you're one of those driven individuals that just get out and do it, what is it that what do you think makes you do this day in and day out? Because you get a lot of no's, you get a lot of disappointment, you
Sure.
get a lot of, it becomes frustrating, And you know, a lot of people they just quit. I mean, but you haven't, and you persevered, you pushed through, and solved issues and solved problems, and you know, got a deal done and made some money, and you know, just pursuing more
Sure.
opportunities, and so tell me, what is it that drives you?
So I'm intrinsically motivated by nature, I think. So anything that I do, I'm going to try to be the best that I can possibly be at it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be the best real estate investor. You know, it means that anything that I do, I'm going to try my best. I'm just going to give it everything that I got. But what keeps me motivated is just escaping that corporate leash,
Right.
and changing my family's financial future and getting back my time. That's what's really important to me, is my time. You know, I can't manufacture more time. That's one of the big things. It's not money that motivates me. For some people, I think money is a good motivator for some people. It's really not for me. It's more about my time, and it's kind of that trade-off.
Right.
So, and a lot of people would argue that, you know, it's kind of the same thing, and it is to an extent. But that's what keeps me going. Is you know, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and this was kind of, hey, a reemergence of and a reawakening of that for me. Here's something that I can do and create a business, and hopefully get it to a point where I can completely leave the corporate world.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's just so important that you got to have a reason. I mean, otherwise the disappointment will just absolutely drive you nuts, and you'll just quit. And I just, you know, we started out with the Crush It organization, and just so many people would come through, and they came from the big box investment companies. Frankly, is where the biggest majority of them came from, and they come hang around for, you know, 4, 5, 6, 8 months, and then just disappear. And talking to them, and they were like, "This real estate thing just didn't work for me."
Yeah,
and
it's hard work.
And it is, and it's, you know, some of it was they just weren't taking the right action, or they weren't taking any action. The biggest majority of them really weren't taking any action at all. You know, they'd be like, well, I was tired this week when I got home, or, you know, this or that, or, you know, the kids. And I get it. I mean, it's definitely not for everybody. But you've got to have a burning why, a burning desire to overcome and seek out opportunities. Otherwise, you just get really disappointed and frustrated. And
yeah, I think you have to embrace the chaos. I mean, you have to be able to. I'm not a salesperson. I've never had a marketing and sales job, you know, and that's kind of what this is. So it really is getting out of your comfort zone. And like you were saying, being okay with somebody telling you no. That's so important. And that was really, really hard for me, because I'm kind of timid in a way, you know. I kind of would cower in the beginning. Oh no, okay, cool, and I go on, you know. And there might have been an opportunity there, but I just didn't see it through, because, you know, I kind of just floundered a little bit when somebody would kind of give a little bit of pushback, and I'm, oh, okay, you know, I'm done.
So have you ever been cussed out?
I have.
Yeah.
Text, through text, on the phone, voicemails.
Yeah. Voicemails.
Yeah, so you get a lot of angry people,
Yeah.
and I never understood that. I mean, I don't get it, because why are you mad because I'm sending you a piece of marketing? You don't get mad when the grocery store sends you an ad, or you know. And I see things on Facebook all the time. People post just these rants that people go off on over direct mail or some marketing that they got, and people really get offended for some reason sometimes.
Because you're talking about their home. You're talking about their personal life.
But
if you just send them an ad, you know, if the grocery store just sends a flyer that says, "Hey, we got meat on sale," people don't care about that. I mean, it's like, you know, they're not going to call the grocery store, "Quit sending this to me," because it's not personal.
Yeah.
When you start talking about someone's house, it's personal. And you guys got to understand that. I mean, it's very personal. And so when and not only that, if you're going after, well, it's not if you're going after, we're reaching out to people that are in trouble. And
most of the time,
they don't hit our lists unless there's some sort of issue.
Sure.
And so when you send them a postcard or a letter or whatever, what you're doing is you're putting your finger, and you're just sitting right on top of that wound, and you're pushing a little bit, and they feel that burn when they look at that postcard and they look at that letter, and so they can leash out and get upset. And as an investor, you have to expect that and understand it's really not about you. It's not targeted you. It's like they're mad at the world, or maybe they're mad at you, but that's okay too. You just let it roll.
There's a lot of people that are going to resent
you. It's like water
you
on that duck's back. You've got to let it roll right off. And here's a great way to approach that too. So you call them up, they call you up and they cuss you out, right? Great.
It happens.
You got their number. You got their name.
You got it.
Give me your name and number. Let me take you off my mail list. No problem. But then you call back the next day and say, you know, I've been thinking about you today. You've been on my mind. I said, you really cussed me out yesterday. You must have been really stressed out. How are you doing today?
Right.
Are you feeling any better?
Yeah.
Don't ask them about their house. Don't ask them about any of that situation. Don't get into their situation. Just ask them, are you feeling better today?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's the experience that I've been getting. So I don't, when I was first starting out, I was like trying to follow a script.
Right.
On the phone, and now I don't do that. I just talk to them about it. When we get to the house, we get to the house.
Right, right.
And I like what you're saying with, you know, hitting them back up and saying, man, you must really be having a bad day yesterday.
Bad day. You cussed me up one side, down the other.
I think that's good.
Yeah, you've been on my mind. I just want to make sure you're okay.
It's hard to be mean to somebody who's being extremely nice to you.
Exactly. You know, and
it's
they're
hard.
They're going to be taken back. They don't want to say. They may cuss you again. They typically don't. They'll be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
So okay, I just want to check. Have a great day and hang up.
I like it.
And then, you know, a couple of days later, call back, said, golly, you know, I'm thinking about you. I don't know why, you're just on my mind, and I just a little worried. Everything going well? And then, you know, depending on how that conversation goes, maybe you can get into the house and say, you know, just ask the question, well, what's going on? You know, I see the house is on the pre-foreclosure list. They're not on the pre-foreclosure list. The house is. And you just, has anybody sat down with you and talked about your options? You have options.
Right.
Has anybody sat down and talked with you about your options?
Yeah, and I think that's just human nature too, to feel like you're in control.
Yeah.
And the word options, you have choices.
You have choices.
That's what an option is. So letting them feel like, you know, they're in control when ultimately it's going to go a couple different ways, and that's really probably going to be the outcome at the end of the day is these stuff. But I think that's great.
Yeah. I mean, their big option is to pay all the back payments, get caught up, and continue on with their life, or maybe a modification. Otherwise, they're going to sell it, or they can let it go to go to foreclosure and lose it.
Yeah, and I don't know. You know, I kind of stopped chasing the pre-foreclosures myself. I do a little bit of marketing to them now, but not a whole lot.
Right.
Just because, man, it broke my heart sometimes, some of the stories.
It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough.
It's a tough group to work with too, because they're not making rational decisions. Everything's very emotional because they're tattered and they're raw.
They're like this, you know, it's so stressful to be in that situation.
But you know, if you can get to them, it actually becomes very satisfying. At least it is to me. Yeah. When you can get to them and gain their trust and make them realize that, you know, you really are there to help them out of this situation. And
so in your opinion, does because when I started out, I was thinking that pre-foreclosure, that's where I need to start. That's the obvious place to start.
Right.
But looking back on it, I don't think it was the best place for me to start, because I wouldn't have known how to handle a lot of those situations that come up in pre-foreclosure, because there's a lot of different strategies on how you can approach those. And if you're just going out and you're trying to say, okay, I want to get into wholesaling,
right?
You know, do you think that the pre-foreclosure is the place to start?
I think the pre-foreclosure is a challenging group.
Yeah.
There's several factors that come in. One, you really need to know your stuff, because you've got to be able to solve their problem, explain the situation to them, and convince them that you're going to be able to get them out of whatever the situation they're in, and not really understanding all the strategies that are available to you can be a hindrance. Another thing is that you really have to have that that ability to handle them psychologically. You know, your social skills have to be super strong. You have to be incredibly intuitive to what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and be able to basically predict what's coming out of their mouth next to help overcome and guide that conversation to a more logical part. But because if you sit back there and just say, you know, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care what you can do. They want to know, how can you help me? And that's the bottom line. And so, but when you've got a seller that is in a very emotional state, making emotional decisions, and logic is completely out of the window, it becomes very difficult. So I think it's a tough group to start with.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you're probably going to get some people, whenever you help solve their problem, they're going to come up and give you a big hug and be so happy about how you helped them. And then you get the other people who are just, they kind of resent you either way, even though you didn't put them in that position. You actually offered a solution. It wasn't maybe the solution that they want, might be the best solution that they have at the time, but they're still just angry and bitter about it.
Right.
You know, and not always, but that's why I kind of shied away from a little bit. I did help one about a month or two ago, you know, and I didn't make any money off of it. It's kind of spent a lot of time and energy and effort and opportunity cost, and was able to, you know, get her foreclosure stopped, and she was able to list the property and sell it. And that was really the best thing that could have happened to her.
Oh, there you go.
Know, there was the margins were kind of tough, you know.
Karma, right? It's going to come back.
Exactly, but it was saying, here's what we can do, you know, and we were able to get a forbearance with the bank and get her property listed, and she was able to walk away with some money. And you know, and it was just knowing that, hey, I'm not smarter than you, but I know a couple of different things that maybe we can try. Right. You know, and that was the best thing that happened to her. But like I said, it was a lot of opportunity costs gone, and you know, I didn't make any money off that, but she walked away with some cash. So I felt like that was a win, and it was a good learning experience for me. Yeah. But it was, you know, that was just leads through my website, and that's what it happened to be, was a foreclosure. Yeah. Pre-foreclosure.
So we're coming up on another break here, so we'll just take a break here, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Russ Keith here with my good friend Jeff Montanya. Talked about real estate investing and how he got started, and his first deal, and just kind of working through some of the different strategies that we can use, and some of the methods we can use to market, and that sort of thing. Would love some questions. If you guys want to drop a question in the comment for Jeff or myself, feel free to do that. Got my iPad pulled up here, and we'll jump right on there and see if we can't answer your questions for you.
Yeah, I'm an open book. If there's anything that you think I can help add value to, you know, your experiences with just the little time that I've been doing this, I love to talk about it and share those things. And I think that that's important for everybody, you know, to be able to have some questions answered, like when you're getting started. And, and that's what this platform is being provided for, and I think it's amazing, you know, so don't be shy.
Yeah. So what are you doing now for additional training? Where do you seek? Are you still doing that? Are you still looking for information?
Always looking for information. I mean, you like you said, you can never know it all, and I'm a lifetime learner. But I do, you know, I continue with the courses with you every Wednesday. We have a meeting. So doing that, and you know, still just reading books and things like that, and learning and watching these lives. You know, I've learned a lot from that. So that's incredible. We have a lot of resources at our fingertips that can be awesome, you know.
Right. So have you jumped into any of the Propelio Academy and looked at what they are doing there?
Yeah, I did. And prior to the 12 steps in foreclosure that I think Daniel put on the Academy, he had done a Facebook. He was presenting at a conference, and I saw the Facebook Live on there. And that helped me a lot when I was dealing with the last situation that I was describing, you know, and I talked with you about it a lot too. But it gave me a lot of confidence,
right?
You know, in having that and having watched it a couple of different times to be able to go out there and feel really good about, you know, what I was going to do and what the goals were and how to approach it, you know. So, and doing, you know, the Wednesday meetings, with the Academy is great to have that ongoing support every week and just get together and talk shop and be able to ask somebody who's been there in that situation, hey, I got this going on. I'm looking at it like this, and maybe get a different perspective or a different angle on, well, maybe you need to look at it like this. Have you thought about that? Because that's important too, because I may not be seeing all sides of the situation.
Yeah, it's really cool in those calls too, when you got multiple deals going on with multiple people, because then you get a shared experience, and that shared experience is, I mean, learning is nothing more than experiencing something. If you don't experience something, you don't truly learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can take in information, even watching something like this or reading a book, and it's just words on a page, or it's words coming, you know, out of a mouth. But if you don't take that information, that concept that's coming through, internalize it and do something in your mind with that information, then you're not going to get that experience. And one, you're not going to remember it, and two, you won't learn from it. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's a really cool aspect about getting together as a group on a you know, group live Zoom call and figuring out exactly what different people are doing and sharing their experiences. So the other point I was going to say is that, you know, there's so much free content out there, and Propelio. The Academy is a huge wealth of information and content. Watching these lives, going to, you know, different groups, like coming to Crush It this Thursday night in Louisville at the Spring Hill Suites. Little shameless plug there, but Chris Walker was going to be on the show today, and he was going to talk about some of
where you at, man?
His experiences as a new real estate investor, and really talk some more about Facebook marketing. But come Thursday night, he'll be at Spring Hill Suites, and we'll do a good hour and a half, 2 hours on Facebook. So be sure and make that and come out. If you're not sure where to find or anything like that, just, you know, get in touch with me. I think you can find me on Facebook fairly easy.
That's it's absolutely critical, I think. I mean, that's something that I'm not real good at, so I'll be there.
Yeah,
you know? I'll be there for sure.
You know, we did it last month, and I think he opened some eyes of a lot of people. But, you know, if you're a real estate investor or a realtor, really working at this from the realtor side of the business, the content that you'll get out of that meeting is invaluable. But back to my original point, you know, going through the Propelio Academy and getting this information, there's a ton of free content on YouTube that you can access. You know, just get on. I spend a lot of time on YouTube learning different things. It's just, there's just no reason, I don't think, to go out and spend, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on a mentoring program, or really it's not even a mentoring program. It is an education program, because the mentoring
I would agree with that
is kind of lacking. But at least it was, you know.
If I can't pick up the phone and call you and talk to you directly, you're
anytime you want,
not
right?
a mentor, you know what I mean? And I can pick up the phone and I can call you, so, you know, and I can lean on you. And so I don't know that those programs offer that. But you know, I hadn't been through them either, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, because I went through one of those programs, and I did have a coach out of Minnesota, and I did have a coach from God knows where that wasn't in Texas.
So you had a coach from Minnesota,
and not one of them ever showed up to a house that I was going to walk through, right?
And did he ever do any deals in Texas?
No. In fact, I talked to one time, and I said something about Trek, and he asked me what Trek was. I knew right then. That was the last conversation I ever had with any of those coaches, those mentors in that program. Wow. I was like, golly, I'm just wasting my time with these people. So,
local knowledge helps, I think.
Local knowledge is huge. I think it's really important.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Anyway.
What a mess.
Jeff, thanks a lot for
Russ,
coming
man,
on.
I appreciate it. It's good to see you, good to talk to you.
We're pushing right at the top of the hour here, so it's just been great visiting with you. And,
it's good to catch up, man.
We'll see you on the call Wednesday night, and hopefully Thursday night you can make it out to crush it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so how do people get in touch with you?
They can email me, Jeff at homeboyhousebuyer.com, or just hit me up on Facebook at Jeff Montanya. And I can give out my cell phone number too. I have no problem talking to people. So if you have questions directly or want to talk shop with me, my number is 214-772-0091. I may regret that, but feel free to reach out to me. And I'm always willing to talk to people about stuff. I love meeting people and talking about this stuff. So
right, and of course I'm Russ Keith at Russ Keith on Facebook. 817-800-RUSS is my cell phone. Love to answer any questions or talk to anybody anytime about real estate. Just absolutely love real estate. So it is all my life now.
That's even an understatement.
It really is. It really is an understatement. So, guys, thanks for joining us today. We're going to bow out of here now. We'll catch you next Monday on another version of Mondays with Russ. So, take care.